Chapter 1. The Fall of the Invincible. The black void of space stretched endlessly, an infinite ocean of darkness flecked with distant stars that twinkled coldly like distant promises forgotten by time. Amid this vastness, the remnants of a ferocious battle still flickered, a scattered constellation of burning wreckage and shattered metal drifting aimlessly in the wake of destruction. Among these ruins, a massive warship, once the pride of the Valkyrie fleet, was spiraling uncontrollably toward the surface of Zathra, a barren, cratered moon orbiting a dying red star at the edge of the Arcturus system. The ship's gleaming armor, once a symbol of invincibility and terror, now cracked and twisted from the relentless barrage it had endured. Its proud hull was scarred by laser blasts and missile strikes, and the engine core sputtered feebly as if gasping for one last breath before the inevitable collision. Inside the command chamber, Lasara sat slumped against the shattered control panel, her breath ragged, each inhale a fiery stab through the wounds inflicted by the merciless assault. Her limbs trembled with pain, yet her emerald eyes burned with undiminished fire. The great warrior, famed across galaxies for her unmatched skill and unbreakable will, had never before tasted defeat. Her very presence on the battlefield had been a rallying cry for her people and a nightmare for their enemies. She was the embodiment of Valkyrie honor and strength, a living legend whose name was whispered in fear and reverence from the farthest reaches of the galaxy to the core worlds of the human colonies. But now, as the cold void pressed in and her ship tumbled uncontrollably toward the surface of this desolate moon, all that remained was a fractured shell of the warrior she once was. Memories of the battle flashed unbidden in her mind, the deafening roar of explosions, the searing pain of plasma burns across her armor, the betrayal of failing systems that left her exposed and vulnerable. She had fought to the last, defying impossible odds, cutting down wave after wave of enemy fighters. But the humans had adapted, their tactics cunning and ruthless. Captain Elias Kane, the man who had become an infamous thorn in the side of the Valkyrie resistance, had orchestrated the final blow. With cold precision, he had exploited a weakness Lasara had never imagined possible, outmaneuvering her fleet and forcing her ship into a deadly descent. The shame of defeat was as palpable as the physical agony that racked her body. As the ship breached the atmosphere, its hull screamed in protest, flames licking the edges of her shattered armor through the cracked viewport. Lasara's grip tightened on the armrest, nails digging into the metal as the ancient warrior fought against the inexorable pull of gravity and destruction. The world below loomed large and merciless, a barren wasteland of cracked rock and dusty craters, a fitting tomb for one who had conquered so many worlds. The final impact was a violent explosion that threw Lasara from her seat, hurling her through the ruined cabin with bone-jarring force. She landed hard on the cold, jagged ground, pain blossoming like wildfire across her battered form. Dazed but not defeated, Lasara struggled to her feet, each movement a battle against the searing agony and the crushing weight of humiliation. The warrior who had once stood unyielding on countless battlefields now knelt on the surface of a dead moon, stripped of her weapons and her dignity. Her armor, cracked and tarnished, offered little protection. Her once fearsome blade lay broken in the dust. Yet even in this shattered state, her spirit refused to surrender. Her eyes flicked toward the horizon, searching for a sign, an ally, or perhaps her executioner. From the shadows of the wreckage, a figure emerged, a human, clad in battle-worn armor, his face set in a mask of determination and wary respect. Captain Elias Kane approached steadily, his rifle trained on the fallen warrior, but his posture devoid of malice. He was no stranger to the cost of war. His own scars bore testimony to battles fought in the name of survival and a fragile peace. The two locked eyes, one filled with fierce pride, the other with measured resolve. And in that charged moment, Lasara made a choice that would alter the course of their lives, and perhaps the fate of their worlds. Dropping to her knees in the dust, the alien warrior's voice was a harsh whisper laced with pain and desperation. "Spare me, human. I'll serve you however you want." The words echoed in the silence, heavy with the weight of defeat and a plea for mercy that transcended pride. Elias lowered his weapon slowly, recognizing in her surrender not weakness, but the flicker of a warrior's honor willing to endure any trial rather than accept death. Thus began a fragile, dangerous alliance, one forged in the crucible of war, fueled by mutual necessity, and shadowed by suspicion and hope. Lasara's journey from proud conqueror to willing servant would test the limits of loyalty, trust, and the very meaning of freedom. Lasara's voice trembled as the words left her lips, a sound alien even to herself, a plea for mercy born not of weakness, but of an unyielding desire to live, to fight another day under different circumstances. The great warrior who had toppled armies now found herself vulnerable and exposed, kneeling in the dust before the human who had become her captor. Elias Kane, though trained for moments like this, felt a complex stir within him, respect for the fierce spirit before him, and the weight of responsibility pressing down like the void around them. He lowered his weapon, but his eyes never left hers. This was no ordinary prisoner. Lasara was a force of nature, and her surrender carried a promise that went beyond mere servitude. With careful hands, Elias helped her to her feet, mindful of the wounds that marred her once glorious form. The silence between them was thick, charged with unspoken questions and wary curiosity. Lasara's pride battled with her instinct to survive, but something in the human's calm demeanor softened the edge of her defiance. She knew the road ahead would be arduous. Servitude to an enemy was a fate few warriors would accept willingly, but in this moment, the spark of a new path was kindled, a path that could lead to redemption, power, or destruction. Elias offered her a choice: to serve and survive, or to perish alone on this forsaken moon. As they made their way to Elias's ship, Lasara's mind raced with a torrent of thoughts, questions about her fate, the nature of this human, and the strange possibility that her destiny might now be intertwined with that of her conqueror. Her people, the Varkari, had taught her that honor was everything, that surrender was a stain upon the soul. Yet here, on the brink of extinction, she was forced to reconsider the very meaning of honor and survival. Elias did not offer her chains or cruelty, but a chance, fragile and uncertain, to become more than a fallen warrior. The ship's interior was stark and utilitarian, a stark contrast to the opulence of Varkari war vessels. Yet it was a sanctuary amid the cold void, a place where Lasara could begin to heal physically and perhaps, slowly, spiritually. Elias tended to her injuries with a mixture of clinical efficiency and quiet care, his actions betraying a depth of compassion that she had not expected from her supposed enemy. The days that followed were filled with unspoken tension and tentative exchanges, as two beings from vastly different worlds navigated the fragile beginnings of trust. Lasara trained in the ship's simulation rooms, honing her skills with new weapons and tactics under Elias's watchful eye, while he sought to understand the fierce pride and complex history that shaped the warrior at his side. Yet the galaxy beyond remained as unforgiving as ever. Messages from Human Command spoke of growing threats: the Syndicate, rogue warlords, and shadowy factions, all vying for power in the wake of the recent conflicts. Lasara's knowledge of alien warfare and her combat prowess made her invaluable, and Elias knew that their survival, and perhaps the survival of countless others, depended on their ability to unite strengths rather than cling to past enmities. Together, they would face challenges that tested not only their skill, but the fragile bond that was beginning to grow between conqueror and captive, human and alien warrior. Chapter 2. Bound by Duty, Forged by War. The ship cut through the endless starscape with silent purpose, carrying its unlikely passengers toward a destiny neither could fully foresee. Lasara stood at the observation deck, gazing out at the glittering tapestry of galaxies stretching infinitely before her. The cold beauty of the cosmos was a stark reminder of the vastness of the universe and the fragility of their existence within it. Elias joined her quietly, his presence a steady comfort against the cold void. Their alliance, born in fire and desperation, was still fragile, built on uneasy necessity and tentative trust, but it was also a spark of hope amid the darkness. As they approached the Human Command Station on the fringe world of Tarvos, preparations for their joint mission intensified. The station was a sprawling fortress of steel and light, a hub for strategic operations against the chaotic forces that threatened peace. Here, Lasara was introduced not as a prisoner, but as a warrior and asset whose fierce reputation and unparalleled skills commanded respect. The human commanders eyed her warily but recognized the value she brought, while Lasara absorbed the complex politics and alliances that governed this new battlefield. Training with human soldiers, Lasara adapted quickly, her instincts and experience blending with new techniques and technology. Elias became both mentor and partner, their bond deepening through shared drills, battles simulated in holographic arenas, and quiet conversations that peeled back the layers of their cultural differences. They shared stories of lost homes and fallen comrades, of battles won and sacrifices made, discovering in each other a reflection of resilience and hope. The mission they prepared for was daunting: a strike deep into syndicate-controlled territory, aimed at crippling the very heart of the enemy's operations. Despite the tension and uncertainty, Lasara found herself no longer just a warrior fighting for survival, but a leader inspiring loyalty and courage. Her fall from invincibility had transformed into a rise towards something more profound: unity in the face of overwhelming odds. Together with Elias, she was ready to face the darkness, to fight not just for themselves, but for a future where trust and strength could coexist amid the stars. Life aboard the Tarvos command station was a whirlwind of relentless activity: humming engines, flashing consoles, and the sharp bark of orders echoing through sterile halls. Lasara moved through this human bastion like a shadow with purpose, her lithe form adapting swiftly to the unfamiliar rhythms of human military discipline. Though her Varkari heritage was steeped in tradition and rigid honor codes, here she found herself navigating complex webs of diplomacy, strategy, and camaraderie. The humans were flawed, unpredictable, and sometimes reckless, but beneath it all lay a stubborn tenacity that mirrored her own fierce will to survive and protect. Elias remained at her side, a constant presence who bridged the worlds between alien and human. He introduced her to the nuances of human warfare, the reliance on technology, the intricate dance of squad tactics, and the delicate politics that shaped alliances. They trained for hours, pushing each other to the brink of exhaustion in simulation chambers where battles were fought and lost in holographic light. Lasara's alien reflexes and combat instincts meshed with Elias's tactical genius, their partnership becoming a living testament to what could be achieved when worlds collided and old grudges were set aside. Their growing bond was not without challenges. Lasara struggled with moments of doubt and cultural clashes, her warrior pride bristling against unfamiliar customs and unexpected vulnerabilities. Elias, for his part, grappled with the weight of command and the responsibility of trusting a former enemy. Yet, through shared hardship and quiet moments beneath Tarvos's twin moons, they found solace in each other's company. Conversations that began with tactical briefings slowly gave way to stories of lost homes, whispered fears, and dreams that flickered like fragile flames in the dark. Meanwhile, the threat of the syndicate loomed ever larger. Intelligence reports painted a grim picture: enemy forces consolidating, launching brutal raids, and tightening their grip on vital star systems. The syndicate was a cancer that threatened to spread unchecked unless cut at its root. The upcoming mission was their best chance, a strike aimed at crippling the syndicate's command center hidden deep within the nebulae of the Syndral Expanse. It was a place where shadows reigned and death lurked in every corner. As preparations advanced, Lasara's role evolved beyond warrior to symbol a beacon of hope to those oppressed by syndicate tyranny. The humans and their alien allies looked to her for leadership, inspired by the strength that had carried her from the ashes of defeat. Elias saw in her not just a comrade, but a partner whose courage rekindled his own faith in their cause. Together, they embodied the fragile but unbreakable alliance that could change the fate of the galaxy. On the eve of departure, Lasara stood once more at the observation deck, the swirling stars reflected in her deep, resolute eyes. Beside her, Elias placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, a silent vow passing between them. The battles ahead would test their limits, but united, they carried the strength of two worlds and the hope that even in the darkest void, light could prevail. The final hours before departure were a whirlwind of preparation and resolve. The command station buzzed with frenetic energy, every crew member aware of the monumental stakes resting on their shoulders. Lysara moved among the troops with a grace born from years of battle, her presence a blend of command and camaraderie that inspired even the most battle-hardened soldiers. The alien warrior had transformed from captive to leader, her fierce spirit igniting a fire in those around her that no darkness could easily quench. She spent long hours in the strategy rooms, poring over maps and intelligence reports, sharpening plans with Elias and the other commanders who respected her insights and honored her experience. Though the humans and Valkyrie had come from worlds divided by history and conflict, their shared goal wove them into a unified front. Lysara often found herself reflecting on how far she had come from the prideful, invincible warrior who knelt in defeat to the determined leader forging alliances in the heart of enemy territory. She and Elias trained relentlessly, perfecting maneuvers and contingencies, their partnership evolving into a seamless coordination of instincts and tactics. Moments stolen between drills became times of connection, where words of strategy mingled with quiet exchanges that hinted at deeper trust and understanding. But beneath the surface of unity, the shadow of the syndicate loomed ever larger. Reports of brutal crackdowns, merciless executions, and the tightening grip of their adversaries added weight to every decision made. The mission to infiltrate the syndicate's fortress was as perilous as it was vital. Failure would mean not just loss of life, but the continuation of tyranny across countless star systems. The stakes forged a fierce determination in every heart, binding them together with a fierce, unbreakable resolve. On the eve of their departure, as the twin moons of Tarvos cast pale light over the command station, Lysara and Elias stood on the observation deck. The vastness of space stretched before them silent, cold, and indifferent to the struggles of those below. Yet within that silence lay a promise, fragile and fierce, the chance to fight for freedom, to reclaim what had been stolen, and to forge a new path through the darkness. Elias's steady hand found Lysara's, a silent vow passing between them. Whatever awaited beyond the stars, they would face it together. Chapter 3. Into the Lion's Den. The fleet sliced through the inky void toward the heart of the Syndicate's stronghold, a massive asteroid fortress cloaked in shadow and armed to the teeth with weaponry designed to crush any who dared approach. Inside the command ship, the atmosphere was taut with tension and focused intent. Lysara stood at the front of the strategy room, surrounded by commanders and specialists, her sharp eyes scanning tactical displays that flickered with enemy positions, defense grids, and patrol routes. Every detail mattered. The margin for error was razor-thin. Elias's voice broke the silence, calm and authoritative as he outlined the plan. The assault would be swift and surgical, strike the armory to cripple their supply, rescue prisoners held captive in the lower cells, and disrupt command systems to sow chaos within their ranks. Lysara's role was pivotal, leading the infiltration team through the labyrinthine tunnels beneath the fortress, using her knowledge of alien architecture and combat to outmaneuver the defenders. The simulations and training had prepared them, but the reality awaiting beyond the docking bay would test their courage and resolve like never before. As their ships approached the asteroid, defenses erupted into a furious storm of laser fire and missile barrages. The fleet wove through the barrage with deadly precision, shields flaring under the relentless assault. Lysara's heart raced not with fear, but with the focused clarity born of countless battles. When their ships docked, the airlock hissed open to reveal a dark, foreboding labyrinth of metal corridors where every shadow could conceal an enemy. The infiltration team moved with silent purpose, each step bringing them closer to the heart of the fortress and deeper into danger. Within those cold, oppressive halls, Lysara felt the familiar rush of adrenaline and the sharp clarity of battle. The Syndicate's soldiers were ruthless and well-trained, but they underestimated the combination of human ingenuity and Valkyrie skill. Explosions shattered the silence as the team advanced, hacking systems and neutralizing threats with deadly efficiency. Yet the deeper they went, the heavier the weight of the fortress pressed upon them. Security tightened, traps lurked, and the enemy's desperation grew palpable. Through it all, Lysara's mind was a whirlwind of strategy and instinct, her body a weapon finely tuned to survive. Side by side with Elias and their comrades, she pushed forward against overwhelming odds, driven by the hope that this assault might finally break the chains of tyranny. The battle was only beginning, and the shadows of war stretched long and deep within the heart of the enemy's lair. The air inside the Syndicate's fortress was thick with tension, a stifling mix of recycled metal scents, smoke, and the ever-present hum of machinery that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Lysara and the infiltration team moved like ghosts through the labyrinthine corridors, their footsteps muffled by the dense carpeting of dust and debris. Every shadow concealed potential danger. Every corner could erupt into violence. The dim emergency lights flickered overhead, casting eerie patterns that danced like specters on the cold, steel walls. Lysara's heart beat steadily beneath her battered armor, her senses sharpened to a razor's edge as she led the way with unwavering determination. Their first objective was the armory, a cavernous chamber filled with weapons, ammo caches, and high-tech war gear vital to the Syndicate's brutal operations. The security was tight. Automated turrets scanned the room relentlessly, and a web of laser grids crisscrossed the entrances. Lysara's fingers moved swiftly over her comm device as she coordinated with Elias and the rest of the squad. The plan was precise. Disable the turrets with hacked codes, shut down the power grid, and storm the armory before reinforcements could arrive. Time was their greatest enemy. With calculated precision, Lysara deployed a series of small EMP charges near the turret arrays. The machines fizzled and sparked before falling silent, a mechanical death in the cold quiet. Her team surged forward, weapons raised, sweeping the room with lethal efficiency. Crates were blasted open, and stockpiles of ammunition and energy cells were secured or destroyed to deny them to the enemy. Every moment in the armory was a battle against not just the Syndicate soldiers who scrambled to mount a defense, but the ticking clock counting down to their discovery. As the team moved deeper into the fortress, they encountered resistance fiercer than anticipated. Mercenaries clad in dark armor emerged from hidden alcoves, firing with deadly accuracy. Lysara's reflexes were a blur, dodging, countering, striking with brutal force honed by years of combat. Her alien strength and agility made her a whirlwind of destruction, but even she was forced to rely on the steady fire and cover provided by Elias and the human soldiers. The battle was chaotic and intense, the corridors echoing with the crackle of energy weapons and the shouts of combatants. Every step forward was paid for with sweat and sacrifice. Finally, they reached the prisoner cells, cold, cramped chambers where captives, many broken by torture and despair, awaited rescue. The sight struck a chord deep within Lysara's heart. She knelt beside a group of haggard prisoners, their eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and hope. Her voice was firm but gentle as she reassured them of their impending freedom. The team moved quickly, releasing the captives and guiding them towards safety while fending off renewed waves of enemy attackers. The fortress, sensing its unraveling, began to collapse into chaos. Alarms blared, corridors flooded with security forces, and the facility's automated defenses went into overdrive. Lysara and Elias signaled a swift retreat, covering the evacuated prisoners with disciplined precision. The path back to the ships was a gauntlet, each corner a battleground, each breath a prayer. Yet through fire and shadow, they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that their mission could change the fate of countless lives. When at last the airlock sealed behind them and the engines roared to life, Lysara allowed herself a moment to breathe. The battle had tested every ounce of their strength, but it had also forged an unbreakable bond, a unity of purpose that transcended worlds and histories. As the fortress shrank into the distance, swallowed by the cold embrace of space, Lysara's gaze met Elias's. In that shared glance lay the promise of battles yet to come and the hope that together, they could face whatever darkness awaited. The escape was a desperate race against time. The fortress erupted into chaos, security systems blaring alarms, corridors flooding with hostile reinforcements. Lysara's team fought fiercely to hold back the tide, each soldier pushing beyond exhaustion, fueled by the fierce hope that their mission would not be in vain. Lysara moved with lethal grace, her every strike precise, her mind sharp despite the pounding of fatigue. Side by side with Elias, they carved a path through the darkened halls, protecting the freed prisoners and each other with a unity born of survival and trust. As they reached the docking bay, The familiar roar of their ship's engines was a welcome sound, a promise of sanctuary amid the chaos. The enemy's desperate attempts to cut them off were relentless, missiles streaking through space and enemy fighters swarming like locusts. Elias piloted their ship with unwavering skill, weaving through debris and blasts with the cool confidence of a seasoned warrior. Lasara manned the defense systems, her alien reflexes slicing through incoming fire as she protected their fragile lifeline to freedom. When at last they broke free of the fortress's gravitational grip, a tense silence fell over the crew. The battle had been brutal, but their victory was undeniable. The Syndicate's grip had been shattered, their prisoners freed, and a powerful statement sent throughout the galaxy that unity between species and strength born of trust could topple even the darkest empires. Lasara's heart swelled with a fierce pride, not for the glory of battle, but for the hope they had rekindled. Yet, even as the stars stretched infinitely before them, Lasara knew the fight was far from over. The galaxy was vast, filled with shadows and dangers yet unseen. But with Elias by her side, and the fragile alliance they had forged, she was ready to face whatever came next, no longer a fallen warrior begging for mercy, but a leader rising from the ashes to claim her destiny. Chapter 4: A New Dawn Forged in Fire. The aftermath of the assault saw the outpost on Tarvos transformed. Once a modest station, it had become a rallying point for resistance fighters and refugees alike, a symbol of hope rising from the darkness. Lasara took on her new role with fierce dedication, no longer just a warrior, but a commander, a mentor, and a symbol of unity between species long divided by history and mistrust. The alliance forged in battle became a family, their shared struggles knitting them together in bonds stronger than blood. Elias remained her constant companion and equal partner. Together, they navigated the complex politics of rebuilding, negotiating fragile truces with alien clans and human factions. The weight of leadership rested heavy on their shoulders, but it was tempered by the strength of their bond, a partnership that had grown beyond circumstance into something deeper and unbreakable. Their shared victories and losses shaped them, forging a future built on trust, respect, and the promise of peace. Yet, the galaxy's darkness never fully receded. Whispers of new threats stirred in distant systems, and the scars of war remained etched in the hearts of many. But the light that Lasara and Elias had kindled burned bright, a beacon in the void, a call to arms for those who refused to bow to tyranny. As they stood together beneath the twin moons of Tarvos, watching the dawn break across a hopeful horizon, they knew the fight was ongoing, but so was the promise of a new era. Lasara's voice, once a plea for mercy, now carried the strength of a warrior reborn. We will face whatever comes. Together. And with that, the alien warrior and the human soldier stepped forward united, resolute, and ready to forge their destiny among the stars. The days that followed the triumphant assault on the Syndicate's fortress marked a profound transformation, not just for the outpost on Tarvos, but for Lasara herself. The warrior who had once knelt in defeat before a human captain now stood tall, as a leader of a burgeoning coalition, a beacon of resilience in a galaxy desperately seeking hope. The station thrummed with renewed purpose, its halls alive with the voices of refugees, soldiers, and diplomats from countless worlds, all drawn by the promise of a future forged in unity rather than conquest. Lasara's role expanded beyond the battlefield. She found herself navigating the intricate web of interspecies diplomacy, her sharp intellect and battle-hardened experience lending weight to her words in council chambers and negotiation tables. Human officials, alien emissaries, and reluctant allies alike looked to her as a symbol of strength and reconciliation, a living testament to the power of alliance forged through hardship. Yet beneath the veneer of command, Lasara wrestled with the shadows of her past, the memories of fallen comrades and shattered worlds that still haunted her nights. It was in the quiet moments with Elias that she found solace, his unwavering presence a steady anchor amid the storm. Together, they faced the daunting task of rebuilding, a fragile peace that required vigilance as much as valor. Tarvos became a crucible of hope and conflict, where old wounds were exposed alongside new alliances. The scars of war were etched deep, and trust was a currency earned through shared sacrifice and honesty. Lasara spearheaded efforts to train new recruits, melding Valkyrie combat techniques with human ingenuity to create a force capable of standing against any threat. Elias coordinated supply lines, diplomatic channels, and intelligence networks, their partnership a seamless blend of strategy and strength. Yet even as the outpost flourished, whispers of danger stirred in the outer reaches of known space. The remnants of the Syndicate, bruised but unbroken, gathered in shadowed systems, their hunger for power undiminished. More sinister forces, mercenary warlords, rogue AI factions, and enigmatic alien cults cast long, threatening shadows across the galaxy's fragile peace. The battle for freedom was far from won. It had merely entered a new, perilous phase. One evening, beneath the twin moons of Tarvos, Lasara and Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the bustling settlement. The sky was a canvas of stars, the gentle light casting their faces in soft hues of silver and blue. The cool breeze carried the distant hum of engines and the murmur of hopeful voices, a symphony of life reclaiming space once dominated by fear. Lasara's eyes reflected the vastness above and the promise of a future yet unwritten. "We've come far," Elias said softly, his hand finding hers, fingers intertwining with the quiet strength that had become their bond. "But the galaxy won't rest. Neither can we." Lasara nodded, her gaze steady and fierce. "Then we'll face it as we always have together. For every dawn, every star, every life worth protecting." In that shared resolve lay the true victory, not the battles fought or the enemies vanquished, but the unbreakable spirit of those who chose hope over despair, unity over division. Lasara, the alien warrior who had once begged for mercy, now stood as a living legend of resilience, a guardian of a new dawn rising across the stars. And with Elias by her side, she was ready for whatever destiny awaited, undaunted, unyielding, and united in purpose. Let me know if you want me to write an epilogue or create summaries or character profiles. You said, continue chapter 4 and ending the story. ChatGPT said, certainly. Here is the final continuation and conclusion of chapter 4, bringing the story to a powerful and satisfying close. Chapter 4, final continuation and conclusion, a new dawn forged in fire. As the months passed, the outpost on Tarvos grew from a fragile sanctuary into a thriving stronghold, a testament to resilience forged in the crucible of war and tempered by the unity of once warring worlds. Lasara stood at the center of this transformation, her presence a living symbol that pride and survival could coexist, that defeat was not the end but a beginning. Her voice, once quiet with desperation, now rang clear and commanding in council chambers, inspiring those who had known only fear and loss to rise and rebuild. Together with Elias, she forged a leadership founded not on domination but on trust and shared purpose. Their bond had grown beyond mere alliance into something deeper, an unbreakable partnership that weathered the storms of politics and the scars of battle. Side by side, they faced not only the challenges of governance but the personal trials of healing wounds invisible to the eye. In Elias's steadfast gaze, Lasara found not just a comrade but a partner, a mirror reflecting strength and vulnerability alike. The galaxy beyond remained turbulent, dark forces lurked in forgotten corners, and the fragile peace was constantly tested. Yet the light they had kindled on Tarvos shone brighter with each passing day, a beacon that drew allies and ignited hope across the stars. Lasara led expeditions into Syndicate-held systems, her warriors fighting with renewed purpose, her tactics evolving with every encounter. Elias coordinated with human and alien factions, weaving a network of resistance that spanned light years. In quieter moments, beneath alien skies painted with countless stars, Lasara and Elias reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from enemies locked in fatal conflict to leaders united in a cause greater than themselves. The warrior who had once dropped to her knees, begging for mercy, now stood unyielding, a queen of a new era where strength was measured not by conquest alone, but by the courage to change. On the anniversary of their first victory against the Syndicate, the outpost held a ceremony beneath the twin moons. Survivors, fighters, and diplomats gathered to honor those lost, and celebrate the dawn of a new chapter. Lissaro addressed the crowd, her voice steady and proud, carrying across the assembly like a clarion call. We stand here not as victors over one another, but as guardians of hope. Our scars remind us of the cost of freedom, but our unity is its greatest reward. Together, we are stronger than any force that seeks to divide us. This dawn is ours to protect, this future ours to shape. As the crowd erupted in cheers, Elias took Lissara's hand, their fingers entwining in a silent promise. The galaxy stretched before them vast, unpredictable, and full of possibility. Whatever darkness awaited beyond the stars, they would face it together, bound by honor, forged by fire, and guided by an unbreakable spirit. Lissara looked out at the horizon, the rising light bathing her armor in radiant gold. She was no longer a fallen warrior pleading for mercy, but a leader who had reclaimed her destiny, a beacon shining boldly in the endless night. And as the new dawn rose over Tarvos, the promise of peace and the fight to protect it burned brighter than ever.